Let's go back and grade every Mets free agent class since the 2010 offseason. There are some absolutely insane names. If you are a Mets fan, diehard like we are, I think this will be a good trip down memory lane. Well, I shouldn't say good. Mostly bad, and especially getting it started off with the 2010 offseason. We start off with possibly the worst Mets contract ever given out. But before we do, make sure you guys are subscribed to Mets'd if you like the content over here. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. Remember, new episodes after every series, twice a week in the offseason, 3 times a week during the regular season. All right, James, you ready to talk about this 2010 offseason?
I mean, if there was one offseason, I'm not ready to talk about this, the 2010 offseason, because this is the offseason. If you guys remember, the Mets signed Jason Bay to a 4-year, $66 million contract, which is hilariously small in hindsight.
Yes.
Hilariously small amount of money to something that we remember, and not that we remember, it actually did hamstring this Mets organization for like half a decade, but this was so bad.
Yeah, this is like the same amount of money. I mean, it's just not a big amount of money at all. 4 for 66 is crazy. But it was one of the bigger contracts signed the entire offseason, which is insane. Jason Bay is on this list. Again, 4 for 66. They signed Rod Barajas, which low-key I feel like was one of the better signings that the Mets had. Some of the other guys that got major league contract offers, Henry Blanco. They signed Alex Cora to a $2 million contract, which is crazy.
How often do you see a team sign 2 catchers to major league contracts in the same offseason? Like, how is that possible?
I'm not sure. That's the New York Mets. Yeah, Henry Blanco. I mean, I respect the hell out of Henry Blanco as a just lifer around baseball. But, man, it's crazy. And he got paid more money than Rod Barajas, funny enough, in this entire thing.
I was about to say that. It is hilarious.
And it also seems like the Mets gave up a compensation pick possibly for Rod Barajas, because I see a signed parentheses B on ESPN, and I think that means they gave something up.
Looks like they did give something up to sign Rod Barajas to a 1-year, $500,000 contract. This was there wasn't a lot of good process going on this time in the Mets history.
This got them Fernando Tatis. Signed with the Mets for $850,000. You also got Kelvin Escobar. I mentioned Alex Cora getting $2 million to play for the New York Mets, and Ryota Igarashi signing for $3 million, which apparently was a top 25 contract signed that offseason, which is also insane.
This had to have been one of the worst off seasons in Mets history. I mean, again, this Mets team was in such a free fall at this time anyway, and not that this offseason could have really saved what we knew was coming, but this is so bad.
Yeah, this is fresh off of the first year at Citi Field, 2009. Jason Bay comes there, makes it look even bigger than it already was. He made that place look like some of those old school baseball stadiums, like the Polo Grounds. I know Polo Grounds was shallow in left field, but like how you'd have the monuments for like in center field and 500 feet to the left center gap. That's what he made it feel like.
I distinctly remember being at Jason Bay's Mets debut, because my dad and I used to go to opening day basically every single year, and he hit like a shot right at us. We were sitting in left field in opening day. We're like, oh, Jason Bay. And like it triple bounced the wall. He wound up hitting a triple. We were like, this place is massive. Like, I don't know how this guy's can get the ball out of here. And this was like a prelude also to David Wright eventually getting hurt. Like this 2010 wound up fading into a bad time in Mets lore.
Yeah, legitimately one of the worst off seasons that we're going to talk about. It's just some insane stuff. Like they brought back Mike Jacobs on a minor league contract too. They were like, you know what? Why not? Let's see if he's still got something left in the tank. I think we can give this one a big fat F, James. It seems pretty fair.
Yeah. This was the last year also of Jerry Manuel, last full year of Jerry Manuel, last year of Omar Minaya. Like this was the end of what was once a prosperous era of Mets baseball.
And you can definitely see why Omar and Jerry had to go based on some of the decision making that was going on. But yeah, F.
Who do you think led the Mets in WAR that year?
2010?
Yeah.
Can I recall? Is it going to be? Was Ryan Church still on the team?
No, Ryan Church.
I really try to black these teams out of my memory. It's got to be a pitcher. Was it a pitcher?
No. I mean, I was just looking at hitters, but if it was a pitcher, no, it was a batter, hitter, center fielder.
Was it Angel Pagan?
Was Angel Pagan.
Nice.
5-win season for Angel Pagan. And when we traded Carlos Beltran, but it was this is such a dark season. David Wright did get MVP votes though.
Hey, shout out David Wright. All right, let's go on to the next offseason now. We know that one was an F. How about the 2011 offseason, James? Not many moves being made, and I'll tell you, this is almost like, how can you go through an offseason as the New York Mets and these are the moves that you made?
I mean, wait, so weren't we just that was the offseason that preluded the 2009-10 offseason? That was the 2009 offseason.
No, that was the 2010 offseason, because the way offseasons work, ESPN ranks it weirdly.
Okay.
2009 is going to be 2010, 2010 is going to be 2011. That's just a little peek behind the curtains of where me and James are looking for this info.
I was gonna say where we're scrolling right now on the 15-year-old ESPN UI. I'm seeing the wrong year. That would be funny screw up to start this. But Mets signed they signed 5 major league contracts this entire offseason, none to starting caliber players. I mean, I guess not really. I mean, Chris Young, he was out there. He was pitching.
Yeah, he's GM now. He's the president now. He wasn't the worst Mets pitcher that I've seen in my lifetime.
No, another major league contract for a catcher and Ronnie Paulino.
Couldn't have enough. We had to bring Ronnie Paulino, and Henry Blanco was probably really old at the time when they signed him, so got to bring in another guy who wasn't very good. You're not interested in DJ Carrasco? Am I remembering correctly? Did DJ Carrasco find his way back to the Mets like recently?
Are you thinking of Carlos Carrasco?
No. Who am I thinking of?
There's no way it's DJ Carrasco. DJ Carrasco's
did.
been out of baseball for a very long time.
Who's the guy that pitched for the Mets in Atlanta a few years ago that came in and got absolutely shelled in relief?
You gotta talk about. No, I thought you were going with Julio Teheran for a second.
His name's DJ something. It's gonna really you talk
something.
a little bit. I'm gonna find this guy. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I'll figure that out. I do remember the Taylor Buckle signing where I was like, this could be some intrigue here. Chris Capuano as well. Don't know if you remembered him. This is also when we got the sneaky double Scott Harrison, Willie Harris contracts to wound up getting serious plate appearances for the Mets that season. I want to actually figure out how many plate appearances those guys combined for because it's pretty remarkable. Willie Harris that year got 283 plate appearances. Did Scott Harrison not even get any? Oh, yeah, no, Scott Harrison, 130 to 145 plate appearances. So those two guys were able to combine for a quality 400 plate appearances.
Confused him with RJ Alvarez. RJ Alvarez is who I was considering.
RJ Alvarez, Jesus.
That's a bad player.
That's terrible. A lot of initials on the mind. This was also the Jose Reyes batting champion season. That was fun.
It's
And this was when we traded 2011, as we traded Carlos Beltran for Zach Wheeler, correct?
Yeah, correct. Sorry, I was coughing. Correct. This has been an absolute rough start here. But yeah, bad offseason, though. My cough is as bad as this offseason. Imagine, like, people talk about a slow offseason right now. Imagine the moves being Imagine DJ Carrasco, who I think when the Mets signed him was 34 years old and was a relief pitcher. That's your big move.
I mean, the fact that the Mets didn't give out a contract that was more than 2 years, the only 2-year contract being, again, DJ Carrasco for $2.5 million. The Mets didn't commit more than $5 million to an individual player. As far as what they put on the books for the 2011 season, it was $7 million.
It almost feels shocking to think that they didn't bring in more than the guys that we see right here.
Like, it seems like these are only the things that happen to the teams that we make fun of now in this day and age. Like, it's when a team like the Cardinals last offseason does the whole thing with no contracts.
Yeah, maybe.
Where it's like, how is this possible?
Maybe makes everyone feel a little bit different about how off seasons have been going recently.
Blaine Boyer's the one guy from this list who actually did hang around for like actual years.
And I think he was like pretty decent, wasn't he?
He snuck his way into a couple okay years, I feel like, but it's just this is
another F.
Yeah, another hard. Like, can we go lower than F? Like, these are incompletes. I don't even feel comfortable giving grades.
Well, don't hold your breath, James, because the next one, the 2012 offseason, it somehow gets even worse.
Well, I mean, luckily we realized what was going on with Scott Harrison, and we gave him a major league contract.
Had to make sure to run it back.
But Scott Harrison snuck into a couple decent moments for the 2012 Mets.
He did.
That was a player that was like, again, 2012 Mets. If you were locked into the 2012 Mets, it was hard to find any excitement. But Scott Harrison hitting 20 home runs. He had that big, was it against the Padres?
I think it was against the Padres.
He had that big home run that went to left field like a Friday night or something. That was a brief moment of excitement. This was also the last true phenomenal David Wright season, which is kind of sad to think about. But let's focus back on the offseason. I'm just going down memory lane, this baseball reference page.
What about bringing Miguel Batista back, who was, I believe, 41? And Mets said, you know what? You gave us 30 pretty good innings at age 40. Let's try it again. Let's see if you got it still at 41.
I can't really be as mad about that as I am about, even 15 years later, about giving Frank Francisco $12 million of American currency for a single season, over 30 years old, to be a relief pitcher for this team.
Really, really, really bad. He, as you guys remember, was putrid with the Mets. I don't think he almost had any good outings.
I mean, let's check the stats right now. What he even did in this 2012 season.
I have fond hatred for him and also the other guy they brought in, 6'11" John Roush, who barely scraped 90 miles an hour, despite being, I think, the tallest baseball player ever.
Is he still the tallest baseball player
Did
ever?
Sean Jelly beat him?
Yeah, I think Sean Jelly probably beat him. New Japanese export Sean Jelly, 6'11". But this was, again, these eras of the Mets were so bad. Like,
Roush also 6'11".
Frank Francisco ended that season with by far the most saves on this Mets team to be their closer. With a A 5.53 ERA and 27 saves. That was in 42 innings.
Maybe it should have gone to Roush. He had 57 innings. He had a 3.5 ERA with a whip under 1. I remember hating his guts.
I mean, I only remember having an opinion on John Roush because it wasn't just there was no reason to even hate John Roush. I'm like, what am I going to do about John Roush right here? This is another
angry little kid.
Somehow Ronnie Cedeno came back too on the short.
No, that's not Roger. This
Ronnie,
is Ronnie.
I said Ronnie.
Yeah.
I'm saying like, even Ronnie Cedeno getting into the fold this offseason is pretty remarkable.
No, I used to be a Ronnie Cedeno believer, and then as you can tell, his career was not very good. He actually had like one of his best stretches ever with the Mets, which says a lot.
I was going to say also Roger Cedeno is your most hated baseball player ever, no?
Yes, hate Roger Cedeno. It's my least favorite Met of all time, without a doubt.
But again, here, $16 million. At least this is the highest amount of money the Mets have given out in offseason so far since we began this exercise.
And it's still an absolute F.
It's almost a harder F than the last one. Because this is the first time we give a really bad contract.
All right, well, let's take a look at 2013. This one, I don't even think you guys are going to be ready for the fact that the Mets gave out 2 contracts that offseason, one of which was a major league contract, and that was to Sean Markham, a 1 year, $4 million contract. The only other contract that they gave out was to relief pitcher Brandon Lyon, which technically was a minor league invite that turned into the league minimum. The Mets were horrible in 2012, and they said, you know what? Let's run it back. I think this team's got to play better, and I don't think they really did.
Shout out farm director Paul DePodesta, who's now the president of baseball operations for the Rockies. He was helping run the show at this time. But this is Brandon Lyon, though, is one of those like great relievers to look back on because it reminds you of what baseball used to be like.
Yeah.
Where a guy like Brandon Lyon did not throw hard. He did not get any strikeouts. And there were multiple years he had, especially with the Diamondbacks, where he was just the closer. Yeah. He was like a 4 or 5 ERA closer, just chucking 92-mile-an-hour sinkers, just having a good ass time. That's like again, these Mets teams were so bad. The fact that this Mets team wound up giving out 420 plate appearances to Eric Young, 460 plate appearances to Marlon Byrd.
How many did Rick Ankiel get?
360 plate appearances to Omar Quintanilla. I was going to reference Rick Ankiel because we wound up bringing him in, I think, midseason on a waiver claim, and he wound up playing 20 games for the Mets. And then they still had an offseason like this where they were like, we actually don't need any players.
Yeah, Daisuke Matsuzaka made his way onto this team too, which was a fun one. Nobody wanted him.
Also, if you remember, I think this was the heart of the Madoff situation.
This was like, we were like, I think they might have gotten screwed by the Ponzi scheme.
Let's see,
or at least lead us to believe that they did.
When did the Bernie Madoff situation drop? Let's see. When did that actually happen?
I think it had to have had...
Oh, he was arrested in 2008?
Yeah, but I think this is like when they maybe started really feeling the hit.
Yeah, his son, I think that was a guy from Westfield. But yeah, he didn't get to prison until 2012. But this is when the Mets had no money and they were making sure everyone in the world knew they had no money.
Yes, and that's also going to be another F for us.
F, incomplete, whatever you want to give this, it's still ugly from here.
The offseason before the magical year of 2015, 2014, a lot of times when you look back at teams that make these runs, you got to look back 2 seasons to see the moves that happened before the year. And they made 2 absolutely massive acquisitions this offseason. They got Curtis Granderson from the Yankees, 4 years, $60 million, and Bartolo Colon on a 2-year, $20 million contract. Also, they brought in the outfielder, Chris Young, this time.
Yeah, the guy got the other Chris Young. But again, finally, this was the Mets spending money. We beat their previous record of $16 million in a single offseason. Now we committed $87 million here to these players between the 60 for Grants and the 20 for Cologne. Also, this is the first time since we began this exercise, again, 2010, the Mets gave out more than a 2-year contract.
Yep. Which
is, again, pretty remarkable. Think about how far this team has come in like a decade plus. The Granderson deal was that signal, though. This was like, we're finally going to try to get this thing back on track a little bit.
Yeah, and Granderson's first year with the Mets was shaky. It was by far, I think, the worst of his time with the Mets. He was still fine. He was a league average hitter, if not a little bit better. It's also still when we would sign like 34-year-olds to like multi-year contracts, and now you would never see something like this probably happen anymore. But he finished his Mets career like about 20% better than league average at the plate. We know that he was a big part of that 2015 team, was a leader, hit 30 home runs for this team, was awesome in the leadoff spot. Like, I remember signing Granderson that first year being disappointed because of how good he was with the Yankees. But by the end of it, he became one of my favorite Mets.
Amazing. We go back, 12 years? The Mets are still signing former Yankees.
Yeah, still doing it. Bartolo Colon, he's another one.
Technically a former Yankee, too. Yeah, I mean, Bartolo Colon, like it's funny for how little a guy played for the Mets in their career and how much they're intertwined in Mets culture, I think, forever.
I mean, Bartolo made the second most appearances of any team that he played on with the Mets. He made 98 appearances with the Mets in 3 seasons. Only the Guardians are more.
Yeah, wow, that's actually kind of shocking. I
Yeah.
can't believe he pitched more with the Mets than he did with the Expos. But I mean, not that we were live watching baseball back then anyway. But this is also when the Mets were able to say they were developing young players.
Yes.
Guys were coming along. Like we finally had Lucas Duda take over for Ike Davis. Daniel Murphy was becoming a stud. Like David Wright was trying really hard. We were starting to give Darno the shot. The pitching rotation was coming together. So it did make sense at this time to give the runway to the prospects to play and not bog this team down with lots of veterans. But at least there was relative effort this offseason.
And again, Bartolo worked out. He wasn't like really that good with the Mets. He was Chad innings eater for those first 2 seasons.
You need Chad innings eaters.
Chad innings eater. In this contract, he was like a 4 ERA guy who would give you 200 innings. But what's so funny is, again, context. Coming off of finish 6th in the Cy Young voting in Oakland at age 40, the Mets said, you know that pudgy, out-of-shape pitcher? That's the guy we're going to give a 2-year, multi-year contract to and give all this money to. The free agents they signed that offseason were 40 years old and 33 years old. That's crazy.
And Chris Young, who got like $8 million to be a backup outfielder.
Chris Young was horrible with the Mets. He was really so bad. He was cooked.
I do remember wanting to believe at the time that you could still unlock something in Chris Young.
Because he had that awesome start with the Diamondbacks when he first came up. That was like meteoric.
And it was before we really knew enough to believe in Juan Lagares. We were like, yeah, like this Juan Lagares guy, he could probably be the backup outfielder. But Chris Young, athlete, power, speed, like you could get good defense at center field and get something real out of him. But this was the Juan Lagares year. Like this was when that kind of his mystique began to kind of take over as well.
Yeah, also just some other random names. I think like John Lannon eventually found his way onto the Mets at some point during the year. Kyle Farnsworth too. I feel like this was a season. Was that this year or the year before? Those guys.
This was Farnsworth, Hefner. Dice Keg again got back into the fold a little bit. We gave another one to Omar Quintanilla, Taylor Teagarden. Like this was still the who's who of this era of Mets.
But it's our first not F of the video.
Oh, this is like a firm C+.
I was gonna go B, but yeah. I mean, context is key. The Mets don't have many good off seasons. This is gonna be weirdly one of the better ones.
Yeah, but I mean, one of the best ones by far. Because even when we get to the next offseason, literally when we went to the World Series, the magical run, this might be the worst offseason that we've even gone through so far.
Yeah, the Mets were like, let's bring in Michael Kadire. They also paid the qualifying offer on Michael Kadire, which is crazy.
And Curtis Granderson, 2 years in a row.
Yeah, 2 years in a row, qualifying offer. Honestly, real credit to Mets player development. Despite constantly not having top picks, they ended up getting some really good players down the line. But yeah, Michael Kadire, 2 years, $21 million, and John Mayberry Jr., 1 for 1.4. It's crazy that even at the time, a 1 year, $1.4 million contract got you a starting spot on the New York Mets. John Mayberry was about as bad as you could be as a baseball player.
Yeah, but John Mayberry Jr. also kind of became like
John Mayberry Jr., yes, of course.
John Mayberry Jr., the signal for like where the Mets season, how bad it was, and the fact they got better.
Yeah.
There was that Saturday game, and it was like mid-June, early July, when he hit fourth, and who hit third in that game? Was it Eric Campbell hit third or vice versa? Something like that. And then they were like, "That enough is enough. This cannot go on any longer. Like, we need to get ball players to come to this team."
It also says a lot, too, when the Mets were going through periods where they were signing guys, and that was the last time they played professional baseball was with the Mets. Like, John Mayberry, at 31, signed a contract with the Mets, never again in the major leagues. Prime of his athleticism, towards the end of his peak athleticism, never played again. He had a 50 OPS plus for the Mets in 59 games. That's like unreal bad. It didn't pay him much, but the fact they even played is embarrassing.
It is even amazing to look back on this because like how kind of like, for lack of a better term, bad this 2015 Mets team was and the run they went on.
They had no business making the World Series, let alone the playoffs. They just the combination of the pitching being unbelievable and the grace of God, Jacob deGrom just all of a sudden becoming like, oh my God, look at who we have: Jacob deGrom, Matt Harvey, Noah Syndergaard, like new generation K, and then of course just Yoenis Cespedes putting the team on his back literally for 2 months.
I mean, Granderson also had a fantastic season. Murphy and Duda both had really good seasons. Like Wilmer Flores, everything that Wilmer Flores did during that regular season. It was also a big moment for them to kind of bite the bullet and admit the Michael Kadire thing was not working. Like that's
Michael
credit
Conforto coming up.
Yes, that's a lot of credit to Terry. It's a lot of credit to Sandy. And again, like shout out to the people who were running the farm at this time. It was Tommy Tane, the scouting director. I mentioned Paul DePodesta. Ian Levin took over this year. Like their Mets were churning out draft picks that were turning into actual major league caliber players, which was a really big deal. And the only reason they were able to sustain with these off seasons and losing all those draft picks to qualifying offers.
And like bringing in guys like Addison Reed at the deadline. Like Addison Reed was, oh man, I'd kill for Addison Reed right now in the New York Mets. That guy was a dog. Tyler Clippard sucked in the playoffs, but he was a big reason why the Mets even got there. Like those guys being at the back end of the bullpen with Jerry's Familia locking it down, 43 saves that year, 1.85 ERA. Everything went right for the Mets. When the first half of the season, everything went wrong. Everything went right in the second half. And then Daniel Murphy, playoffs, nonstop hitting home runs, became Barry Bonds for 2 weeks. That was unbelievable.
But again, funny that because in this exercise, all we're doing is great in the offseason.
And
I think
it's an F.
This might have been the worst one. The worst one we've seen so far.
Yeah, Michael Kadire. By the way, Mets paid a qualifying offer on a guy that they signed at age 35 in Michael Kadire.
And the year before, 33 in Chris Granderson.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that the wherewithal that these teams just completely lacked.
So now we're going to go through a funny offseason. This one I'm actually excited to grade because this will be by far the most expensive offseason we've graded so far.
Yes.
The Mets coming off the World Series appearance, feeling really good, wanting to push the chips back in, and probably signing some contracts they should not have signed in retrospect.
Yeah, so looking at this Mets offseason, we know the big albatross that I think the Mets had to sign it. They had to do this move. Yoenis Cespedes, 3 years, $75 million. If they didn't do it, I don't know what the Mets could have even possibly done as a team offensively without him, because even in that first season, he was unbelievable. It's just that the years to follow, he kind of disappeared.
It also became a situation where, and again, this is what the Wilpons used to do against, I don't want to bring up PTSD for anybody, but when other big-time players came available the offseasons following this, namely 2019 with Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, two of the most absolute lockstep, easiest ways a franchise ever had to like really improve your fortunes in one shot. The Wilpons would be like, I don't know how many teams out there have two $25 million players. So it's like, if we could have signed Yoenis Cespedes for $1 million fewer dollars, and it could have been 24 and 2/3 million, like, or 24 and 1/3 million, where this team could have actually been. Again, that was also them just bullshitting us trying to do that. But like, there was also an element of this offseason where it was Cespedes versus Daniel Murphy as who was going to be re-signed by the team.
Yeah.
And it's funny to look back on that one because those years in Washington, Murphy was
unbelievable. Just what the Mets could have used.
Unstoppable. Yeah. And again, like also the 2016 Mets were a good team. Like,
yes, they made the playoffs.
We're chastising some of these moves that happened at the top.
And Cespedes was awesome that first year. He was incredible.
Oh, fantastic. He still played 130 games. He still hit. It was 30 home runs. Like, that was great. But one of the most underrated moves for this era of Mets baseball was this Asdrubal Cabrera.
He was awesome in 2016. So good.
Asdrubal Cabrera was a very fun move. Signed here at age 30. I'm hoping we get a little bit of this influence now in this season coming with the Jorge Polanco signing. Like, that's the one I'm trying to link in my head to be like this new version of Asdrubal Cabrera. Asdrubal also, again, a little different because Asdrubal Cabrera, they slot him in to play shortstop when he's 30 years old on this contract.
Reyes playing third base.
Reyes playing third. This was an era. Like, basically a 2-year, $19 million deal. He was a 3-win player. He had that huge home run against the Phillies. Like, there was very fun Asdrubal Cabrera moments. The ass man, as he was so kindly known as. And again, still just even spending this much in an offseason, happily the Wilpons went to $122 million. Still wound up playing James Loney for 100 games, and it was just like, and the corpse of Jose Reyes for 60.
Also an underrated move too, bringing in Neil Walker. It wasn't on free agent, but it was through trade. The trade John Neese for him. Neil Walker was unbelievable that year too. 23 home runs, 820 OPS in about 120 games for the Mets. That was huge. That was kind of even more of the Wilmer Flores awakening for Mets fans, which was really fun. We brought back Kelly Johnson again. He was great again for this team. Conforto, that was his down year, funny enough. Like, we were really depending on him. He didn't show up really that season for a bit.
Here's the flip side, though, of these. There were a few contracts the Mets gave out, of course, that backfired because that's how these exercises work. The main one being Antonio Bastardo.
Yeah, so
2 years, $12 million.
One of the few times I remember, like, viciously screaming when a player came into a game. Not only was he horrendous, the numbers, there's nothing good to come from Antonio Bastardo being a Met, but he was a human rain delay on the mound. He literally would take a minute and a half between every pitch. I'm like, you're going to walk him. You're going to walk him or you're going to give up a nuke. Just rip the Band-Aid off. I'm tired of it. He was so bad. And then the other guy on this list that drove me absolutely insane, Alejandro De Aza, because not for a second had Alejandro De Aza ever been a good player. Never for a second had he been an average player. He had been literally awful his entire career. And the Mets said, 1 year, $6 million. And you know what? You're going to play center field and you're going to hit leadoff sometimes for this team. It was insane.
It also was funny at the time. I don't remember if the Diaz move was before they signed Cespedes or after, but with Cespedes, you had Conforto, Cespedes, Granderson ready to go. So it's like, where's the $6 million outfield fitting? And we knew at the time how tight the Mets budget was, and this was a move that you look back on, like, this is why in the world are you doing this to your team right now?
Brought back Bartolo. He actually had the best season of his Mets career in 2016, so funny enough that one worked out. How old was he then? 43 when they signed him to that contract.
We also got the Brandon Nimmo debut this season, so this was, again, still a fun year for the Mets. 2016 ran into the buzzsaw that was Madison Bumgarner.
Gesellman saved the team at the end of the year as Drupal off of Edebray Ramos with the hands up hitting the home run.
That was the one I said before against the Phillies. It was, again, this was a very fun Mets season to look back on. A nice encore to the World Series team, and just, again, one that you ran to the buzzsaw and Madison Bumgarner, but just an offseason that wound up foreshadowing what was going to be the next downfall of the Mets.
Yeah, as much as at the time I don't think it was bad, and as Drupal was great, this one's got to be, I think, a D. Because there was a positive, but that Cespedes contract became an albatross.
Became an albatross because the Mets made it an albatross. It should not have become an albatross.
That's also but it did though.
Kind of, like, again, looking back, it's funny to be like, yeah, that 3 years, $75 million contract became an albatross for the 30-year-old guy who still hit 30 home runs that following season. Like, it was more wonky than albatross. Like, I'm still giving it a C because, like, process wise, I don't think that contract should have screwed them. I still don't. I mean, I'm still always upset about the whole way the Murphy stuff went down. But best star though, Cabrera, and we gave Jerry Blevins a major league contract this offseason. I was very happy for Jerry to get his because he was such a big part of that 2015 run.
You know what? I'll give it a C because you're right, because I forget that the context is that the Yoenis Cespedes mega contract comes in the next year.
Yes, this is when it actually starts to get bad.
Yeah, 4 years, $110 million, $27.5 million. So they said, we saw good, pay him. We saw him even better, pay him even more. And that
was a 1 year opt out.
Yeah, and that's when Yoenis Cespedes just stopped being able to really play baseball at any sort of rate.
Yeah, and we had extended him the qualifying offer after he opted out. So we did have leverage in the market. Leverage I don't think the team used very well. We also extended Neil Walker qualifying offer, and he signed it, which was like, fun, cool for Neil there. Also gave Jerry Blevins another big raise because he deserved it. Fernando Salas came in that $3 million contract. I think Fernando Salas was like I don't know, you can yell at me for saying he was a bit of a misrepresented reliever in the Mets lore.
he just wasn't very good.
It was just one of those things where this was the time where Terry Collins was starting to lose it a little bit, and he was just going to the same three pitchers every single time there was any kind of issue in the game. Like, how many times could I possibly click the Hansel Robles button? Like, how many times could I click at that time? Again, the Jerry Blevins button. Jerry Blevins got into 75 games this year.
And Jerry was great.
Awesome. Jerry was, again, amazing player. Jerry Blevins earning the $10 million over these 2 years was some of the best money the Mets spent in this entire era.
The problem is the rest of it was not. And as you know, the Mets did not make the playoffs that year. It was an extremely disappointing season. And
not make the playoffs. It almost came in last. Like 70 games. This year was terrible.
And this is a bad one. This one's definitely going to go down as an F.
God, yeah, Jay Brew, this is F because there were holes to plug. When that 2016 Mets went on the run, it seemed so obvious that there were so many holes in that team. They're very fortunate to get to the spot they wound up in. And then the Mets went to that offseason being like, let's run it back plus Fernando Salas.
Yeah, did not work
out. That was the only acquisition that was made in the free agent market that wasn't on the team the year before.
Surely it's going to get better, James. The 2018 offseason.
Oh, it has to get better, right? There's no way it gets worse.
All right, here we go. This is prime Draft Neck Mark content starting to be created, starting to do some MLB news. Jay Bruce, 3 years, $39 million. We sent him to Cleveland. Then we brought him back and paid him on a pretty big contract, honestly, for a guy that kind of didn't have a position anymore. Todd Frazier on a 2 year, $17 million contract. The Todd father, never forget. My boy Jason Vargas, 2 for $16, paying him U.S. currency was insane. The only thing that was crazier is giving $14 million to Anthony Swarzak over 2 years, who I don't even think made it half a season with the Mets. He was so bad.
Well, didn't he wind up in the trade for Edwin Diaz?
Yeah. Edwin Diaz, yeah. It was him and Bruce, I think, were both in the trade for Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, they were both in the trade. This was also, like, when you start making content, this is when I started to kind of familiarize myself more with the ancient scrolls. This is when I was reading a lot more baseball prospectus, fan graphs, like really familiarizing myself, like, late in college with this kind of stuff going on. I remember, like, the Todd Frazier contract was like kind of one of my eye-opening moments where I was like, I don't know why we're giving this guy this contract. My dad was like, what do you mean? The good home run hitter come around? And I was like, the park factor between the Yankees and Cincinnati coming to Citi Field, like there's no way he's going to have that same level of power. He was like, wow, what the fuck's this kid talking about?
Yeah, I was definitely a bit tough on Todd Frazier, to say the least. I know he's our buddy now at Foul Territory, but like, funny enough, his first two seasons with the Mets, like he actually was
Fine.
pretty fine. Like
Yeah, played totally okay. Nothing that happened with this team was his fault at all.
no, not at all. He was like a 2.5 win player each of those seasons. That's kind of all you could ask for, especially on the contract that he was given at the time, which was 2 for $17 million. Like they gave Anthony Swarzak similar money. So
yeah, I mean, again, dollars per war. Todd Frazier was a hit. This 2018 Mets team also, you felt like it should have been better. Like this is when Nimmo broke out of his shell and turned into a real good player. This is when just all the hopes and dreams are surrounding Ahmed Rosario and his .295 batting average.
It's also the start of the worst kept secret in baseball, Mickey Callaway.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to reference that. I don't even know what to call him, Predator. But yeah, this was remember April 2018 though, how good this team looked.
They were so good. They were so good.
Awesome.
And
again, this was also the beginning of Jacob deGrom being what he was. This was the true Zach Wheeler breakout when the Wilpons didn't want to pay him for 1 year of pitching well. Syndergaard also was still very good this year. Like this was a nice moment for the Mets. If they had any way to fill in the talent on this roster, besides Jay Bruce, Todd Frazier were not really the problems with this team.
No, it was
signing Jose Reyes this time was crazy. Giving Anthony Swarzak $14 million of UN's currency was crazy.
Jason Vargas was insane. Jason Vargas pitched 92 innings of a near 6 ERA that season. Like, that's crazy. Also, shout out Corey Oswalt. Never forget James. He 64 innings, near 6 ERA, because that's what Corey Oswalt did. Not a free agent sign, just had to mention it.
Yeah, the Mets were also, this offseason, like, you were involved for Lorenzo Cain. We felt like that was something that could have happened. This is when there was, like, a moment for Jake Arrieta, when we didn't really know what was going to happen next. Of course, the Mets weren't involved with these guys, but it was Wade Davis. He signed with the Rockies in probably one of the worst free agent contracts I can remember from this time. It was a weak time for MLB free agency in general, but the Mets still found a way not to plug any of the holes.
No, absolutely not. I'm going to give this one a D as well. I don't think this was very good.
Yeah, I'm comfortable giving this a D.
All right, 2019 offseason. You got all the new rookies that were coming up, all the young guys. It's a big year. Pete Alonso opening day. The Mets offseason, they traded Jerry's Familia to the A's. Then they brought him back 3 years, $30 million.
Brought him back.
This is the Brody Van Wagenen era, too, so we got to remember that they made some trades, and they also brought in Jed Lowry, also from the A's, 2 years, $20 million. We got the Buffalo, Wilson Ramos, 2 years, 19 from the Phillies. Justin Wilson, 2 years, $10 million from the Cubs. And then Joe Panic is listed on here, but I think he was midseason Joe Panic, 1 for $555 from the Giants.
Yeah, it was. This also, we have to throw into this. This was when we gave Jacob deGrom a nice, clean, comfortable extension. So it's hard for me to take so many shots at this offseason, even though it was, again, you guys just heard those names and those dollars, a pretty horrific offseason by any standards whatsoever, especially when, again, Bryce Harper, Manny Machado were incredibly available.
Available.
You weren't even involved in them as a big market team because you were worried about Yoenis Cespedes' $27 million he was owed, which kind of sucks in retrospect, but it's this was a team that, with any kind of more
pitching
holes that were plugged, you could have won the World Series this year.
If they had a tenth more of pitching than what they had, they easily make the playoffs. If they had 2/10, they had 1/5 better pitching. Like you said, they probably win the World Series. And it's a great video by Foolish Baseball about how the Mets, statistically, that's like one of the best offenses to ever exist in baseball that year in 2019. Big part of it's the juice balls and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, because Jerry Familia and Edwin Diaz, who were, again, brought in to be the 8th, 9th, locked down. And going into the year, you would have thought that was a pretty good 8-9 right there. Like, Jerry Familia was still absolute money, and Diaz was incredible. And I think those guys combined for about like 120 innings of a near 6-something ERA, which is crazy.
No, and at the time, I do understand why Mickey was sticking with Edwin Diaz. You kind of have to stick with him. But looking back, if there was more of a aggressive rug pull and you would have just gone to more Seth Lugo and Justin Wilson like they finally did really down the stretch once we got to late August, September, this team would have made the playoffs, and this team had all of the tools to go on the same run the Nationals. We watched the Nationals go on.
Now, that being said, this offseason was also horrendous.
Well, abysmal, because you have, again, add in the Jacob deGrom extension, like I said, but also the whole context of this offseason began with Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz trade. So the fact that all of that money that we probably could have spent on players wound up going to those instead. Like, the money you gave Robinson Cano could have been pushed towards Manny Machado, and then that would have really changed the
or
whole
Bryce Harper.
Anything in the last 7 years of Mets baseball. Thankfully not, Patrick Corbin or like AJ Pollock or anything, but like still, like, this was fun offseason. Like, there were guys out there that were fun. We reviewed this offseason for the windup. Yes. I don't know which of these are going to come out first, but like if you're interested by that, it's on the windup at some point. And the Mets really just botched in such a dramatic way.
Yeah, this one's going to be an F for me as well.
Yeah, it's a firm F. I got to add into the Robinson Cano contract. Makes it even a bigger F.
Makes it even worse. All right, James. Right before COVID, 2020 offseason, you remember where you were when Dellin Betances signed with the Mets? Because I do.
Yeah, I think I was going to our apartment in Astoria for the first time.
I think I was driving in the car with my dad, and I was not particularly happy with it because I was just like, it didn't have anything to actually do with Dellin Betances as a player. I was just like, another Yankee? Like, what's going on here? What was it? I would have been how old in 2020? I would have been 24.
24.
Yeah, 24-year-old Mark was just a real big anti-Yankee at the time. Still am, but anything that had Yankee stank on it, I was out.
That was when you were wildly anti-Yankee. That was when you would do your champagne showers every year when they lost.
Had to make some viral content. You gotta get your name out there. That was an easy way for me. But yeah, Dellin Betances 1 year, $10 million. Rick Porcello 1 year, $10 million. Michael Wakaloki was a sick deal. 1 year, $3 million.
Wasn't very good with the Mets, but it was an amazing deal.
Yeah.
Good process.
Brad Brock 2 for $2.1 million, which I can't even believe they signed Brad Brock to multiple years. That's kind of crazy. And then remember Jared Hughes? He was a Met this offseason. 1 year, $700,000. A lot of this is also tainted by the fact that it was a shortened season. It's kind of tough to judge these guys truthfully.
Yeah, we also had Rene Rivera came into the Mets that season.
Again, he came back.
Came back to the Mets. Matt Adams. Like, this was just the whole year's kind of a wash. Like, I think the best way to symbolize this Mets season is the Ahmed Rosario walk-off home run in Yankee Stadium for the Mets. Like, if that video goes around, you're like, what? Like, Dom Smith getting MVP votes.
You're like,
dystopian. What happened? But again, like, process-wise, Michael Wacha and Rick Porcello get some cheap innings. Sure. Like, it's funny to look back and that Michael Wacha is still pitching well in Major League Baseball, and Rick Porcello got more than 3 times the amount of money that Wacha received.
And a big reason why is a lot of the changes that he made with the Mets, because his K rate bumped up a ton that year he came to the Mets. That kind of like saved his career despite the ERA being about as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, it was bad. But also, like, if Michael Wacha would have gotten to pitch more than the third of the innings he went to pitching, that ERA probably levels out really, really well. It's just this was the nature of the shortened season and why this season meant nothing in hindsight.
But also, if we are going to grade it, I think almost every single one of these guys pitched poorly for the Mets. So,
this is another firm F. One of the firmest Fs we've had for the last few years. Again, if you guys are sensing a theme, this Mets off seasons have always been really, really bad, at least in the last 15 years.
Almost impossibly bad, honestly. You could look back and name so many good players the Mets were linked to almost none of them.
And again, this was the last offseason before the big change, getting Steve Cohen. And we still did see this was just not even being remotely involved in either Garrett Cole or Zach Wheeler is so painful in hindsight just because
Zach
of how...
Wheeler's not an ace.
Well, again, of course not. One good season. We're not going to pay him for one good season just for how good those guys would have been. Even a guy like Hyun-Jin Ryu, who was not great, but he was a stabilizing factor for a Blue Jays team that at least had made some playoff runs. And during his 4-year deal, like there were players out there that really could have helped this Mets team, but just did not do so.
2021 offseason. All right.
Beginning of the new.
Steve Cohen era. Francisco Lindor. What are the moves they're going to follow? What are we going to fill it up with? All right. How about the biggest contract we gave out that year? James McCann, 4 years, $40 million. And I loved it at the time. Taijuan Walker, 3 years, $23 million. Honestly, one of the better contracts that they gave out. Kind of funny in retrospect. Marcus Stroman. Remember, we traded for Marcus Stroman. He's back. 1 year.
Qualifying offer.
$18.9 million on the qualifying offer. Trevor May, 2 years, $15 million. Also, just for context, to give Trevor May 2 for 15 when years ago we gave Anthony Swarzak the same thing is insane. It's nuts to say out loud. We also gave Kevin Pillar a 2-year contract, which feels crazy at the time. Jonathan Villar, the Mets brought in. Aaron Loop, Albert Almora, and never forget the Sam McWilliams offseason.
No, I was so into Sam McWilliams. I was so ready for
No
that
one was
fastball.
more in, though, than Wardy. I think Wardy still thinks about that guy every day.
This is funny. This is when we started doing the podcast. This is the offseason I really started to remember. So funny thing about that James McCann contract, that was the 7th highest contract by total value given out that offseason by any team.
I mean, like, it ended up being so bad, but like truthfully at the end of the day, like $40 million over 4 years is not the worst thing that could have happened. There's definitely worse. It's just James McCann played about as bad as he could have and also was almost never healthy.
He sucked. He wasn't even good leading into this contract. I was viscerally upset.
He had a good
when
year
the
with
Mets
the,
signed that contract.
he was a juice ball guy. He got so pumped by the juice balls.
It was like that one fake juice ball season, but it seemed very obvious what was going on here. But this was the epitome of like, all right, Steve Cohen is here. Let's spend some money. We're throwing shit against the wall.
Yeah, and
I'm having fun doing it.
McCann was bad. Taijuan was good. 3 for 23. Like that's good no matter how you slice it.
No, Taijuan was our day man that year. Every single time he pitched a day game, he was money. And it was like that was the kind of the lesson of like how important those like Chad innings years are at the time. And this Mets team in the first half was like considered a playoff team. And they played like it. They fought through so many injuries early on. You had the famous who was that James McCann playing first base for a period of time, but like
and you still had the COVID stuff where like COVID would run rampant through a team, and you just had 12 guys out for a game.
And Lindor was terrible in this first year,
So
really bad. And then you picked up the hamstring, make the trade for Javi Baez or Pete Armstrong. But like this offseason was at least a really nice time where the Mets were exerting legitimate amounts of effort. And I felt like as a fan, I was beginning to feel uplifted by the concept of what could come. Even though, again, looking back, this offseason was egregiously bad.
Yeah, and front office stuff was also very, very murky at the time as well.
Yeah, we went through a couple lead executives that year. A couple things happened.
3 executives in one calendar year.
Yeah, 3 executives, 2 managers, no big deal. Who cares? No, not a serious thing going on there at all. Let's got Jose Peraza. He had that great day game home run against, what was it, the Brewers?
Oh man, he owns Josh Hader's ass.
Yeah, that was it. Also, this was when we reportedly signed the pitcher who's dealt with legal issues that wound up in Japan, sucks now, and wound up not being true. So
pretty good move by us at the end of the day to not get him.
Dodged that bullet, which was really, really nice. And we also didn't give DJ LeMahieu $90 million, which is cool.
Which is big, yeah. This was a C offseason, I think I'd say.
No, this is still a firm D.
This is a D? Taiwan was good. Marcus Stroman was good in the next year. Yeah, Trevor May was a good reliever. I think it's just they got nothing offensively at all.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm being a little too hard. I mean, the VR thing was fun too.
VR was a chaos player. Even Kevin Pillar, big hit against the Reds. Don't forget that chaos game.
And the hit in the face, the Mets'd Up podcast first viral tweet.
Yes.
That was a big one. And also bringing in Aaron Loop for nothing, how good he was.
He was awesome, yeah.
All right, you swayed me. I'll go up to a C.
All right, C for 2021. That's also, again, context, how bad Mets offseasons has been, that this is one of the better ones we've talked about.
Next one gets really fun, though.
Yes, this is where the Steve Cohen money really started to kick. We really started flowing, and this is Billy Epler, right?
This was Billy Epler. This was also the lockout, segmenting the offseason, where the offseason begins with us signing Max Scherzer to an outrageously fun contract. That was when the Mets'd Up podcast actually began.
Yeah, that's when we went mega viral for hosting a Twitter Spaces at the time, because it was like Max Scherzer watch, and the Mets found out about us through one of our Twitter Spaces, and that's how we ended up working for the team. That's simple. We had a lot of people listening to us, and it was the perfect timing of MLB teams partnering up with a podcasting company where every single team had to produce a podcast for their organization. And luckily, we were like the only Mets podcast at the time that had viewership that wasn't produced by somebody. So that was good.
Yeah, it was perfect. Worked out well for us. And again, worked out well for the Mets until the last 2 starts of the year. Scherzer was amazing. Like, that was also it was a real indication that this team had to be taken seriously. Like, yes. I think it was very important to sign him. Like, it was even honestly a signal to the guys in the room, like guys like Nimmo, like McNeil. Like, this was like, oh,
Lindor.
Yeah, I mean, Lindor was still Lindor. Like, we knew he would bounce back.
No,
like,
I'm talking about just like a little vote of confidence of like, we're gonna spend. This is not the Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah, for sure. And also similar thing. Once the lockout ended, right after that, getting good, solid start. Oh no, this was still before, wasn't it? When we did the flurry of veterans, like the Mark Cannon, Eduardo Escobar, Starling Marte, like back to back.
I don't remember the timing of it. It had to be before, I think, though.
I guess it was before, because I feel like I remember like having a pregame in my apartment for a concert, and like these things were happening. I was like, oh damn, like the Mets are actually just signing tons of free agents right now. It's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, they were picking off Starling Marte, 4 years, $78 million from the A's, along with Mark Cannon, 2 years, $26 million. I think 2 fan favorites. I know Marte wasn't great towards the end, but like I do think the fans love these guys.
Oh, all fan favorites. Marte, Cannon, and Escobar. And again, this to me was like the ushering in of like that.
This was a big Mark-off season. Just like
huge Mark-off season.
2 guys that I loved for kind of not really any specific reason, Starling Marte and Eduardo Escobar. I'm like, yes, they're Mets. I love these guys.
And one guy named Mark.
Yes, one guy named Mark. Mark Cannon, spelled it the wrong way, but he was great. Like, all 3 of those guys were awesome in 2022.
And also 2022 for paying Adam Ottavino $4 million. He was one of the best relievers in baseball. I know a lot of people were frustrated by Adam with the way the final years of his Mets tenure went down, but 2022 he's literally one of the best relievers in baseball, including Edwin Diaz, who was the best reliever in baseball. Yeah. Like those guys plus Seth Lugo, like that's how we kind of became this. That's how we were able to sustain a lot of success with that like 3-head monster at the back end.
And while I think there are some like weird feelings of what happened with Scherzer towards the end of being a Met, just because of like the teardown and the fact that like in 2023 he really wasn't good at all for this team, like people,
and the starts against the Braves and Padres,
yeah, and the starts at the end of the year. But like,
He was nasty.
I do think this was a great offseason. Like this is by far the best offseason I think that we've had in this entire video.
Yeah, it's also maybe a good it's a good lesson maybe for what the Mets could need right now. Just like after the lockout, the trade for Chris Bassett, 180 innings.
Yeah.
Taiwan got to 160, Carrasco 150, Scherzer 150, DeGrom, came back at the end. He did what he had to do. David Peterson mixing in for his 100. Like it was Trevor Williams throwing 90 innings.
Awesome.
Like this was, we had these Chad innings eaters we had out there. It was just fun to watch those guys show up and pitch.
Could be a lot of what we see this year. Trying to get some Chad innings out of some of these guys on the Mets rotation right now. James, what are you going to give this offseason?
I mean, I probably still give this an A.
I was going to give it an A.
It was a moment in time that kind of signified what we were going to be. And also, don't forget the fact that we tried to save John Curtis. Tried to give John Curtis the contract and fix that arm. Wasn't in the cards, but we tried really hard.
No, I've never seen a pitcher take as good of fungos. Well, not fungos, I'm not saying. Whenever the pitchers are out in the outfield during batting practice, that guy was robbing home runs consistently. One of the best pitcher outfielders I've ever seen in my life.
While recovering from injury, which was amazing.
All right, 2023 offseason. So the Mets, disappointing end of the season. Obviously, we know they choked at the end and then got bounced by the Padres. But Brandon Nimmo, career season, center field, went absolutely off. We paid him 8 years, $162. Man, this is crazy. Edwin Diaz, 5 years, $102 million. We said, we got one old guy. Let's bring in the other one that Steve Cohen knows, Justin Verlander, 2 years, $86 million. So to Verlander and Scherzer, I think they were getting paid $86 million total for the year. We got Kodai Senga from Japan, 5 years, $75 million. We got Jose Quintana, didn't know he had a tumor, broke his ribs, 2 years, $26 million. Up until that point, all good signings pretty much. And then Omar Narvaez, 2 for 15. Maybe one of the worst Mets players in history. We re-upped Adam Ottavino after a great year. Didn't really bounce back or pitch ever the same again. I think the 1 year he was fine, and then the second year of that contract, it was really rough. David Robertson, 1 year, $10 million was actually money. Tommy Pham, this was the start of Tommy Pham stuff, and then Danny Mendick, 1 year, $1 million.
This was not the start of my Tommy Pham
no,
stuff.
I was for a while.
I was locked in Tommy Pham since the Cardinals days. That was my boy over there. But this was the classic case of we got really excited. Things went pretty well the year before, despite a disappointing ending. Let's get the band back together and plug up the holes with the oldest people we can possibly find.
But I will say, I don't think it was. The Mets did just violently underperform.
This wasn't a bad offseason, but it wound up being a bad offseason because of what these contracts kind of became. Like when I did my video on my channel a month ago about what the Mets plan is right now, I think that this is the blueprint of the offseason they specifically did not want to have.
Correct.
Because again, also don't forget the Jeff McNeil extension as well. But at the time, these Diaz and Nimmo contracts, I was happy to have these guys back. We also looked around this is a lot of money for these guys.
But also, I think that Brandon Nimmo's probably going to get, maybe the years would have been the difference, but Brandon Nimmo was going to get north of $20 million a year if he signed a contract. Coming off of that, playing the center field defense that he had and the offensive year that he had, you were like, man, did we just get one of the better center fielders in baseball right now?
Yeah, the nexus of that was give me 2 to 3 years of center field defense and then be a good corner outfielder for the next 2 to 3 years. Then we just have 2 more years to back end. We can figure those out when the time comes. But that just...
And we did, and we traded him.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that was an example of this offseason, the Mets medicals not being as thorough as they should have been. Because again, we missed Jose Quintana's tumor in his ribcage that led to a stress fracture. We missed the entire first half of the season. He was exactly what the Mets probably needed to get through the first half of that season because the wheels fell off quickly, as you guys remember, sold at the deadline, started to replenish the farm system, started to look towards the future, got the Buck Showalter thing, thankfully ended at that time, Billy Epler as well. It was beginning of some real chaos, but it was a prelude to 2024, which wound up being great.
I also don't think it was a bad offseason. I think I'd give this one a B.
I don't know. In retrospect, looking back, those Nimmo and Diaz contracts were crazy. It's funny also that those situations were also only came to a head this past offseason. This feels like a long time ago.
Feels like a long time ago. I don't know. The Nimmo contract, I think, for what it's been for us, I still think it was fine.
It was fine.
We're
totally fine.
We're worried about the next 3 years, but he's not on the team anymore. So in the time that he was here, I think it was still completely fine to pay him $20 million a year. Edwin was great besides blowing out his knee. Verlander was good in the 8 starts he made for the Mets.
He was, he only made 8 because he also got injured in the eve of the season, the teres major strain. It was
Kodai was awesome.
Kodai was great that year. This is also, yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's so funny that a contract like Kodai, it's still kind of unwritten.
Yeah.
Like there's still a lot more work to be done to see where that contract actually winds
If
up.
Kodai gives us like
value-wise.
125 innings this year, it's probably a pretty good contract.
Even at 3.6, that contract all of a sudden has tons of plus value. It's funny to look back. This was also a fun offseason for us because we were so involved in all these things.
Yeah.
Like I got to interview Nimmo one-on-one
Yep.
right when he signed that deal, and I love Nimmo. Like we got to be in the press conference room and interview Justin Verlander
And Kodai.
Senga. That was like this and Jeff McNeil. Like,
Yeah.
This was a fun time for Mark and James. But
We
this
did
Mets
spring
season was not
training.
fun.
Like we were ripping it this offseason.
Yeah.
Fun
We
offseason
did.
for us. Fun offseason for the Mets. I think B's fair. That's where I'm going with it.
I'll give you the B on that one.
All right. 2024 offseason.
This one was fun.
It's the David Stearns era. And
Mhm.
if you look back at the David Stearns era and you see some of the contracts that have been handed out, there's a pattern here.
Yeah, you start to notice a little bit of a pattern.
Yes, and it is the lack of willingness to give multi-year deals. Like they gave Sean Manaea the 2 for 28, but that we know that was kind of
An
not.
opt-out.
Yeah, it was an opt-out, so it wasn't really 2 for 28. Luis Severino 1 for 13. JD Martinez 1 for 12. Harrison Bader 1 for 10. Brought back Ottavino again because I think he might have opted out or whatever it was. Shintaro Fujinami, the prodigal son that never was. Julio Teheran pitched for
close.
the Mets that year. Joey Wendell. Jorge Lopez, who saved the season. Can't forget him. We signed a sleeper cell agent at Michael Tonkin. Austin Adams, who then we cut, and then when he got an out against us, it basically gave double middle fingers to the Mets and said, "Go fuck yourself." This was
Changed the whole franchise, though.
This was fun because it was a chaos offseason.
It was fun to get new process. It was fun to feel like we were trying something different. Also funny because we were talking about like kind of chastising those like 2010s off seasons when the Mets were only doling out like 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars in total contracts. This offseason, the Mets only doled out $80 million in total money.
The difference was they got like 12 players, where then it was like, oh man, who are the guys
You
that
got
you
three
just
guys.
signed?
Again, like even getting 12 players, like most of these guys were complete non-factors whatsoever.
Oh yeah,
Like,
most of them, yeah.
Fujinami, non-factor. Like Joey Wendell, the opposite of non-factor, negative factor. Jorge Lopez, negative factor.
Positive
Like,
factor.
Yeah, positive factor. Austin Adams fucking hates the Mets.
Yeah.
Hates the Mets to this day. He was making remarks about the Mets last year on the Athletics when they beat us in Sacramento.
It's like, dude, it was a roster crunch, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Also, again, like maybe it was just something. Again, it's clear like there could be some pattern here with the Mets and relievers, like we heard Adam Ottavino say on his YouTube channel. Because between him, Jorge Lopez, Austin Adams, not a lot of guys that think fondly of the Mets.
No, definitely not. I think it has to do more with the situations that they were in, but
Like, so yeah, again, it's the way that the production you did get from Bader, Martinez, Severino, Manaea though was completely season altering. Like that's what led this team on the run to get to the playoffs with the best record in baseball for an 80-game stretch and become 2 games away from reaching the World
yeah,
Series.
each of these guys had their ebbs and flows, but definitely more ebbs than flows. Is that the right way to say it?
I think more flows than ebbs.
Is ebbs bad?
Ebbs are
I
bad.
thought ebbs were good.
I don't think so. Maybe I could be wrong on this too. I
Man,
feel-
you guys can let us know in the comments. I know the expression. I just know it means ups and downs.
ebb is the outgoing water that recedes from the shore, and the flow is the incoming water. So yeah, the ebb is out and the flow is good.
Okay, so ebbs bad.
Ebbs bad.
Okay, good.
Flow
to know.
good.
All right. Well, the flows were better than the ebbs.
I guess it also depends on what your relationship is like with the shore.
True,
Like maybe the
yeah, it
shore
depends.
The flow out could actually be good for you. It depends. However you see that fits for your own personal preferences.
The Mets'd podcast discuss environmental strategies with ebbs and flows. But yeah, this offseason pretty good.
I mean, if you guys made it 50 minutes into this, now we get to really start talking nitty gritty about what we think is going to keep happening this offseason continues. But this was good. Like this was a good start to get confident in the David Stearns era.
Yeah, I think that this one's also
can't give it an
no,
A.
it's going to be a B. I was going to go B
Yeah.
because it was positive,
Yeah.
but it's hard to give an A when you don't have like any basically all-star signed in the offseason.
Oh, for sure. It's like this is the epitome of dumpster Dave.
Yeah,
right here.
this when people talk about the boy genius, this is the offseason that they think's going to happen when in retrospect it's not.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you compare this to now as we move to the next offseason, which one actually looked better in retrospect? Because you kind of avoid giving away the 3-75 to Sean Manaea. You avoid the 2 for 34 to Frankie Montas. Those were the ones that completely just decimated and destroyed this
Because
team.
actually, the rest of the contracts given out here
Amazing.
were awesome. Like everyone wants to, again, and he deserves blame. Didn't put together the best roster, but Juan Soto is one of the best players in baseball last year. We know that. Pete Alonso was one of the best first basemen in baseball last year. We know that. Clay Holmes gave you 170 innings this year of a 3.5 ERA after being a lifetime reliever. That is such a slam dunk. Can't say it enough. AJ Minter, the injury is the thing that hurt him, but he's still here. And when he pitched, Big Boom AJ was lights out.
Oh, I think the season goes a lot differently if AJ Minter doesn't tear
Probably
that
make the
line.
playoffs.
And definitely make the playoffs. We're relying on AJ Minter a lot to be a 7th, 8th inning guy this year. I think he's going to be a big part of this bullpen. And of course, like you haven't mentioned Juan Soto.
No, I did mention Juan Soto. I said he was one of the best. Yeah, I was like Juan Soto, one of the best players in baseball. Like that was insane. And then even Dumpster Dave, boy genius, Griffin Canning, $4 million 1 year. He gives 90 innings. He was awesome, Griffin Canning, until he literally blew out his Achilles. He was such a major piece of this team. Brooks Raley coming back was great. The rest of the guys underneath, not the most, but like even Justin Hagen.
Take shots.
I think Justin Hageman, that's one of your guys. He's got value. He's going to pitch on this team again, and he wasn't unpitchable when the Mets have had unpitchable guys in similar scenarios.
No, the problem was reliance on Justin Hageman. And the reliance on Justin Hageman came because, again, the contracts that were given to Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea wound up being the ones that really screwed this team.
Yes.
That's kind of it. And even though we like looking back in the offseason last year, it's like, sure, there were definitely other players, pitchers I would have liked the Mets to try and sign. Like in retrospect, like a guy like Max Fried, and even we said at the time Corbin Burns, would have been very unlikely to add them on top of the Juan Soto contract. But like in terms of average annual value, like Sean Manaea and Max Fried are making almost the same amount of money.
Yeah, that part hurts. Yeah.
So it's like you just really needed stability, and the hope was that Sean Manaea could provide stability and Frankie Montas could provide you stability with upside. Those were wrong decisions, 100% wrong decisions, and something that a slight lesson David Stearns may have learned, where sometimes you wait out the market and you can find a better deal on the backside.
Yeah.
That is what happened last year with the Nick Pivetta contract, where he wound up being one of the more unheralded pitchers in the National League. He only signed for, again, $4 million that year. His contract jumped up like $25 million this year. That's just because the Padres need some fancy financial footwork over there to try and figure out what's going on with their books. But it was a real good honest shot.
I have a hard time grading this one.
Just because we're so close to it still?
No, because we got one of the 5 best players in baseball. That's unbelievable, and he's here for 15 years. That's ridiculous. Who would I be to say anything but an A? But it's also tough because this team massively underperformed, and 2 of the big pitching contracts that they gave out have been disasters so far. Sean Manaea can save it. Next year, he can give us 140, 150 innings and make this contract worth it, without a doubt. It's just a little bit worried.
Yeah, definitely. Also, similar to Clay Holmes. Like, if we get another Clay Holmes jump, or even if we get Clay Holmes exactly the same,
I want
no
exact same Clay Holmes. He doesn't need to get an inch better.
I mean, I would like it if he did, but again, even if he doesn't, this contract is still incredibly worth it. It's also funny, again, going back to those off seasons a decade ago, the Mets spending like $16 million total dollars, and this one you spend $1 billion.
Yeah, I mean,
just think about the concept of that for a second.
They did give a guy $765 million,
but they also gave 2 other guys over 50. You gave 2 other guys over 30, another guy over 20. Like the Mets spent fat last offseason. Like they were ready to go. They plugged every single hole. Like the Jesse Winker 1 year, $8 million vanity contract too. Like there were a lot of shots taken this offseason that really did not come to fruition. But most of them, not all of them, most of them, you could still squint and see the process.
What are you giving this one? I'm gonna give it a B.
I was also going to do B because like Juan Soto was like A+++++, but there was a lot of, and also again the Pete Alonso contract last year was so
awesome.
Perfect. Like I still struggle to talk about Pete because I'm still sad. I'm still like thinking about it, and I still want to know. Again, maybe by the time you guys listen to this, maybe we have a Pete Alonso replacement. Maybe the big hitter's been added to this lineup. We don't really know. A lot of rumors are flying around at the time of recording this, but it was just kind of a stroke of genius last year to be able to get him on that 1 year deal, to make him the highest AAV first baseman, and to be another key cog in the middle of this lineup.
It's boy genius, David Stearns. All right, let's just for 2 seconds talk about the 2026 offseason as it currently stands when we record this.
Yeah, okay. So to let the people know where it currently stands, because that could change.
Devin Williams, 3 years, $51 million. Jorge Polanco, 2 for $40. Luke Weaver, 2 for $22. We brought back Dickie Lovelady, 1 for $1 million. But I think more so the conversation is not about the players that have been brought in. It's about the players that are no longer a part of this team. And I think that's the tough pill that everyone has to swallow. And that's what's going to make this offseason, kind of no matter who they bring in, hurt for a lot of people.
A few moments later.
Time travel. It's now February 19th, and the Mets offseason is over. And I sounded like a whiny little baby talking about how horrible the Mets offseason was. But to be fair, when we recorded it, I think it was like January 12th or 13th. And almost days after that, the Mets got Bo Bichette, traded for Freddie Peralta, traded for Luis Robert, brought in the Sockman, Mike Talkman. There was a lot of changes happening here, and I do think that did change the feel of this offseason.
Very much so. It was kind of a negative moment there. Again, that's why we wanted to go through the old off seasons to be like, oh, it really isn't so bad. And everything got spun around on us. This episode wound up sitting for 6 weeks on the back burner. We got through the Super Bowl, almost all of the NFL playoffs. But, I mean, it's hard to grade an off season before games are played. But just based on my feelings going into the season, I feel like it's a firm A. I'm very excited about what this team can be this offseason.
Yeah, me too. I mean, Freddie Peralta, frontline starter, ace guy. We needed that badly. We talked about how big of a difference maker that could be for this team, and they went out and got him. They gave up a bunch, but they got him and Tobias Myers, which were big additions for this team. Bo Bichette's going to mash. Again, third base is still questionable, but he's going to mash. Luis Robert, we've been seeing the spring training clips, and my God, I'm excited. Oh, my God, I can't wait to put on Luis Robert, number 88 jersey. Can't wait to throw that on for opening day.
Yeah, shout out Max Goodman for tweeting out that Robert hit a 470.5-foot home run.
And he was
Thursday.
hitting lasers off of Sean Manaea. I don't know if that's bad for Manaea or good for Luis Robert. What do you think?
Both.
Nice, I like that.
But again, like now we have pitching depth, we have an ace. We have depth because now we've added an ace. The position player group legit came together. Jorge Polanco looks like he's going to be a good defensive first baseman.
Did you see the super edit someone put together of all the errors Pete made last year at first base? And it was also at the end of games. Like the Mets legitimately lost 3 or 4 games last year because of an error Pete made at first base in the 8th or 9th inning. I completely blocked those out of my memory.
Yeah, Meekfield made that one. One against the Yankees, one against the Nationals. There was another one mixed in there somewhere. It was. I mean, still love Pete Alonso. We'll never chastise Pete Alonso, but it will be interesting to have a good defensive first baseman.
Yeah, and those clips so far of Jorge Polanco, days after talking about how he can't play the position, he can at least make the throws. The throws look better than ever at first base.
The infielder footwork's tremendous. We just need the first base footwork, but another 5 weeks. I'm confident we'll get there.
But yes, this is a firm, confident A for an offseason. Truly don't think the Mets could have done much better.
No, definitely don't think the Mets have done much better. And this is an hour and 10 minutes of grading every single offseason since 2010. You guys have seen the changes over the years. Happy we're where we're at now compared to where we were about a decade and a half ago. But I just can't wait to watch baseball games be played.
So excited to watch. Is this where I wrap it up, James?
Yeah, wrap it up. We need a new outro.
Wrap it up. That's it for this episode. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to Mets'd on YouTube. We appreciate all the YouTube subscribers, and we appreciate all the people that listen to us. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. You can follow James on social media at
James Shiano.
I'm Draftnik Mark. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Let's go Mets.